As project managers, we know that the most valuable resource we have is time. This is why this course is strictly time-boxed. Zero waste, maximum value. And what you're watching right now is class 5 of our 6-part PMP Essentials framework. Over the previous modules, we established our baseline with the exam content outline, and we deep dived into the people, process, and business environment domains. Today, we are shifting our focus to the life cycle itself. We're looking at the 5 focus areas of project delivery: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing. Let's begin. These are 5 universal focus areas of project delivery. Every project, whether you're building a bridge using a strict predictive approach or developing software using an Agile framework, goes through these 5 phases. Initiating, defining the project and getting authorization. Planning, determining how the work will be done. Executing, doing the work. Monitoring, controlling, checking the work against the plan. Closing, formalizing acceptance and transitioning to product. The critical variance for the exam is understanding how these phases manifest differently depending on your execution methodology. Let's break them down. Initiating is about authorization and alignment. You cannot start a project without a project charter. In a predictive environment, the charter is a formal document signed by the sponsor, officially authorizing the project manager to apply organizational resources to project activities. It also defines a high-level scope, schedule, and budget. In an agile environment, we still have a charter, but it might be called an agile project charter or a vision statement. It focuses less on strict constraints and more on the product vision, release criteria, and defining the team. The second critical artifact here is the stakeholder register. Identify your stakeholders early. A project will fail if key stakeholders are discovered during execution. Planning is where we define the course of action. The exam will heavily test your understanding of when planning occurs. In a predictive project, planning is heavily front-loaded. We create a comprehensive project management plan defining scope, schedule, cost, quality, and risk baselines before execution begins. In an agile project, planning is continuous. We use progressive elaboration. We do high-level release planning and then detailed iteration or sprint planning just before the work begins. We plan enough to start and adapt as we learn. Exam rule: planning is iterative. Even in predictive projects, you will revisit the planning phase when changes are approved. This is where the resources are expanded and deliverables are created in executing focus area. Your role as the PM during execution is not to do the work, but to facilitate it. You are managing the team, managing communications, implementing risk responses, and conducting quality assurance. In Predictive, you're following the project management plan strictly. In Agile, the team is self-organizing, pulling work from the sprint backlog, and conducting daily stand-ups to synchronize their efforts. The key output of execution is work performance data, the raw observations of what is happening on the ground. Monitoring and controlling. This phase runs parallel to execution. While the team is executing, you are monitoring. You take that raw work performance data, compare it against your baselines, and generate work performance information. Are we ahead of schedule? Over budget? If there is a variance, this is where integrated change control happens. In a predictive environment, any change to the baseline must go through a formal change control board. In Agile, change is expected. We monitor progress using burnout charts and we adapt our plan during sprint retrospectives. Change is managed continuously, even through backlog prioritization. Closing is not just walking away when the deliverables are done. This is a formal process. You must obtain formal acceptance of the deliverables from the customer or sponsor. You must conduct administrative closure, archiving records, releasing resources, and contractual closure, finalizing procurements. Most importantly for the exam, lessons learned. You must document what went right and what went wrong, and transfer that knowledge to the organizational process assets, the OPAs. In Agile, closing happens frequently, at the end of every sprint, during the retrospective, and finally at the end of the release. Assuming these five focus areas happen in a strict sequential linear order is a trap. These phases overlap. The indirect. You do not finish all planning before you start executing. You will be executing and monitoring simultaneously. If monitoring reveals a problem, you look back into planning to adjust the schedule. If a new phase or a large project begins, you might initiate that phase while closing a previous one. Understand that these are process groups, not a strict chronological timeline. Let's map the five areas to Agile ceremonies. Initiating is creating the product vision and initial product backlog. Planning our sprint planning meetings. Executing the sprint itself, guided by daily stand-ups. Monitoring and controlling sprint reviews. And information radiators. Closing sprint retrospectives and release. When you see a question about sprint review, know that this is a monitoring and controlling activity focused on product validation. You are now a negotiator and an aligner. You are securing authorization in initiating. In planning, you are an architect. You are building the roadmap. Executing, you're a facilitator and blocker remover. You clear the path for the team. Monitoring and controlling, you're an analyst. You're looking for variances and risks. Closing, you're an archivist and educator. You're capturing lessons learned. The exam tests your situational awareness. You do what you do depends entirely on which phase the scenario places you in. For the artifacts flow, initiating produces the project charter. The charter feeds into planning, which produces the project management plan. The plan guides executing, which produces deliverables and work performance data. Monitoring and controlling takes those deliverables, runs them through quality control, and produces verified deliverables. It also takes the data and turns it into work performance information. Finally, closing takes those verified deliverables, gets formal sign-off, and produces accepted deliverables and the final product transition. Understand this flow and you can answer almost any process question. The cost of making a change increases exponentially as you move through the project life cycle. A change during planning costs almost nothing. You just update the document. A change during execution costs time and money. A change during closing can be catastrophic. This is why predictive projects use strict change control boards to limit changes late in the project. Agile projects mitigate this risk by keeping planning cycles short, sprints, so the cost of change remains low throughout the project. Always assess the impact of a change before taking action, regardless of the phase. In a summary, we have the universal application of initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing. It applies to all projects. Methodology determines timing, predictive plans upfront, agile plans continuously. Overlapping nature, these phases are not strictly linear. They overlap and interact. Artifact flow, understand how the charter leads to the plan, which leads to deliverables, which leads to acceptance. Mastering this flow is essential for navigating the situational questions of the exam. We have now covered the domains and the life cycle. In your final module, Class 6, we will tackle the most modern aspects of the exam: Agile deep dives, AI in project management, and the evolution of the modern PMO. Your action item today: review the artifact flow diagram in your study materials and ensure you can map the 5 phases to Agile ceremonies. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the final module. Protect your time, execute like a PM. I'll see you in class 6. Thank you for watching.